Are you striving to achieve a higher level of performance or that certain look? There is help. Welcome to the Super Strength Podcast, featuring candid conversations and motivating stories of success. Now, here is your host.
Hello, this is your host, Nick Jaworski, and I am here with Ray Toulany. And today we will be talking with Ray about disproving one of the biggest myths when it comes to training and how conditioning is the overlooked key to tapping into your potential for superhuman abilities. We will be discussing the definition of genuine strength according to one of the greatest strongmen to have ever lived, the real reason why a large chest is such a sought-after goal, the one thing Vince Lombardi thought could turn even the strongest of men into cowards, and the essential minimum baselines you should be able to meet. Is your training giving you what you need? Now, before Ray joins us, just a reminder that if you have questions or require assistance, you can reach Ray online at www.raytoulany.com or on his Facebook page at facebook.com/Ray Toulany Strength and Conditioning. Ray, it is great to be talking with you today.
What's cracking, Nick?
Not much. I'm ready to get into this. And why don't you go ahead and start off this episode by explaining how conditioning plays an important role in order for you to lift heavy weights and reach your full potential? I mean, what's conditioning got to do with any of it?
All right, man. Let's make it happen. Okay, if anybody's ever been in a gym for any time at all, and even if they haven't been, they've heard you got to train hard, go hard, go big, go home. You know what I mean?
Right.
Well, training hard means using the most productive movements, which are compound movements. And those compound movements work massive amounts of muscle mass in your body. And using all that muscle to move all that weight has you huffing, puffing, panting, and perspiring like you wouldn't believe.
Mm-hmm.
And to be able to keep up with that demand, your lungs and heart need to be up to the task, okay? And that means your conditioning. So if your conditioning isn't there, you're not going to be able to keep up with it, okay? And you're going to start to gas out and drag ass in the gym, and that's not good.
Okay, so traditionally, do bodybuilders train with this idea of conditioning in mind? Are they focused on conditioning, or is it something that may happen by chance or doesn't happen at all?
Well, it's interesting you say that because today, you get high-level bodybuilders, they do their conditioning by segregating their, quote-unquote cardio from their weight training. Back in the old days, not even that long ago, like Arnold's time, okay, they would actually move at such a pace in their training when they got closer to their competitions that it actually turned into cardio sessions, okay? Now, yeah, I mean, it was just go, 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 go. And when you're moving those kind of weights and these type of exercises, it just really gets you working. So now, one thing to keep in mind is that bodybuilders today, they have this fascination with the chest. It's not even bodybuilders, just pretty much a lot of people. It's either, big chest, big arms, right? That's kind of the big things that people focus on. How much do you bench? How big are your arms?
Right.
Okay. So this is kind of a fascination. But the reality is, there's always been a fascination with the big chest, even before the bench press was around. Okay, but they weren't talking about the pecs. See, people don't realize that. Your chest and pecs are two different things. Okay, the pecs are muscle, the actual tissue on top of your chest, which is comprised of your ribs, your rib cage or rib box, as they used to call it back then. So the reason they were so infatuated with a large chest back in the day was because they realized a large chest produced a foundation for massive and powerful body, okay? The larger the rib cage was, the more muscle and that could be put onto that frame, okay? And the more muscle, the stronger that person, technically could be. But the other reason was because they realized and they understood that a large chest gave the room, it housed a strong and large set of lungs and heart, which meant it allowed you to work like a machine, right?
Right.
They really valued that back in the day. They used to say he's ribbed up like a racehorse. That was an actual term that they used to throw around back then. Yeah.
Okay, now in talking previously, we've talked about this concept of strength endurance. And could you just explain what that is and perhaps how it plays into the idea of conditioning?
No problem, man. I'm gonna bring out my man Arthur Saxon.
All right.
I mentioned it before. We're gonna go back to that guy. Okay, Arthur Saxon. The guy was beyond his. I mean, he was way beyond his time in terms of his understanding. So, again, we're talking over 100 years ago. This is what this guy had to say. This legend. He said, "Genuine strength should not include only momentary strength, as proved by the ability to lift a heavy weight once, but also the far more valuable kind of strength for endurance. Okay. So what does that exactly mean? And essentially what he's saying is he believed that a cyclist should be able to ride 100 miles at any time without it killing them. He thought a wrestler should be able to wrestle for 30 minutes nonstop with a good wrestler without exhausting him. Okay. He thought that that was important. If that's what you did, you need to be strong in your endeavor. Okay. So he goes on to say, when a man raises a weight only once, a heavy weight, all that he proves himself to possess is muscular control and great contractile power. But this does not guarantee sound internal organs, nor does it prove that a man would come out well on an endurance test. It's a combination of momentary strength and enduring strength, which makes real strength. So you see, he's touching on the two. He's saying momentary, which is like the powerlifting or the Olympic weightlifting type strength, max strength, and enduring strength, which is, again, the wrestler or the cyclist. You can go really far on that end of the spectrum and be like the jogger, right? But, so he's saying you got to have both. You got to have strength, but you also need to have the strength to actually, endure. You don't just want to be able to lift something just once. So he goes on to say, the man capable of long feats of endurance should live longest. And such a man will find his powers of more avail or more use in everyday life than the man who has sacrificed vital strength for an extra few eighths of an inch of muscle and perhaps the ability to raise a few pounds more in a certain position in a weightlifting test. So, you see that happening with elite level bodybuilders and powerlifters. They've become so specialized in what they're doing. That's what they're going after. And if that's what you want to do, that's fine. You just need to realize that's what you're doing. You're giving up certain things to reach these elite levels. But at the same time, you can have amazing levels of strength and endurance, and they feed off of each other and have the health and vitality to go with it.
All right, well, we got to take a quick break, but don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with Ray Toulany, and we'll be continuing our conversation about conditioning and strength. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned for more of the Super Strength Podcast with Ray Toulany after we hear from our sponsors. Did you know the most popular workouts today involve kettlebells? It's no surprise. Kettlebells offer a much greater range of motion for increased muscular endurance. Due to the displaced center of gravity, kettlebells are much harder to control, placing increased demands on agility, core stabilization, and coordination. Order your kettlebells today at raytoulany.com/kettlebells. That's RAYTOULANY.com/kettlebells. Did you know a strong core not only helps improve power and balance, it can also help decrease the likelihood of injuries. And nothing looks better than a strong, lean midsection. The Power Wheel delivers by challenging your abs, obliques, back, hips, and glutes. The Power Wheel is the perfect piece of equipment for all fitness levels. Get your Power Wheel today at raytoulany.com/powerwheel. That's RAYTOULANY.com/powerwheel. Now let's get back to the Super Strength Podcast with Ray Toulany.
All right, we are back with Ray Toulany, and we are talking about training for conditioning and strength. And so, Ray, how can a lack of wind, a lack of conditioning, how can that impact your results, the things you're trying to accomplish?
Okay, so as we said in the beginning here of the interview, the most effective exercises are the compound lifts. Okay, and as you become more advanced, your training, your routines become much more intense, much more rowdy. So deadlifts, squats, rows, presses, these are the big things. Okay, now if you're not in shape cardiovascular wise, you will not be able to push yourself as intensely on those exercises as you need to keep moving up and up. Okay, so that means you're not going to get the hormonal response, okay, that you would otherwise. And you're also not going to be able to lift your maximum ability because you're going to be tired. So your gains are going to slow down, okay? And, they're going to be smaller gains and they're going to be slower gains. So none of us want that. So it doesn't matter if you're training for aesthetics or you just want to be like a never say die machine that just is nonstop, go, just an absolute terror on the mat or the field, okay? The thing is, you need to be in shape to maximize your potential. If you really want to max it out, you got to be in shape for it. It's just the way it is. Another thing is just my own personal belief is it's kind of the idea of, okay, you're really strong. Let's take a look at it kind of like artillery versus a tank is the way I look at it. They're both basically the same idea, okay, except a tank is mobile artillery to a certain degree. Thing is, artillery, it doesn't really move anywhere. You can't really get it anywhere. So you got to go there and it stops and it can't move around. Whereas a tank is mobile. It moves around. It could really deliver that force and that strength wherever it wants to. So, I mean, what's the point of being huge and strong if you gas out after the slightest exertion? I mean, I'm not into that, okay? And seriously, if you're running out of breath from just wiping your rear end, I mean, that's just not really comes to mind, to my mind anyway, when I'm thinking about being, a strongman or having strength and health.
Right. Now, I've heard that, there are places that suggest that perhaps you should minimize the amount of energy you put into the outside world, right? If you're training for something specific, that you really need to maximize your time in the gym and minimize anything else outside of the gym in terms of using energy. What do you think about that?
I think it's a pathetic attitude to have.
I'm not surprised.
I mean, that's my opinion. I think it disrespects all the struggles and sacrifices made by those that came before us, whether it's your parents or all the way back to Uncle Ugg from the Stone Age. I mean, seriously, they went through a lot to get us to where we are now, and now we're just going to be these lazy, bastards that just sit around all day and do nothing. I mean, that's pathetic. And I think that physical lethargy, I think that heavily influences your mental state. I mean, they say your physical state influences your mental state.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, that being said, there is some truth to what you hear, like a lot of these muscle mags saying. If you plan on running, marathons on a consistent basis, week after week, day after day, I mean, you're going to have a very hard time maxing muscle mass and strength development. I mean, that's just the way it is. But that being said, as we covered, certain forms of conditioning, they do increase your work capacity, which in turn allows you to train harder, okay, recover quicker.
Right.
And, whether it's between set to set or workout to workout. I mean, this is a big deal that a lot of people don't realize. Okay, and that's what's really going to take you to the next level.
Yeah, in terms of recovery, I've heard someone say once that conditioning is recovery. Is that a fair statement?
Well, yeah, you could use your conditioning as a way to get the blood moving around in the body. I mean, you see it when a lot of athletes, hockey, you tend to see it a lot of times in hockey. They'll be interviewing the guys after the game, and he's on a stationary bike, and he's biking along, and that's because they're getting the blood into the thighs to wash out all the lactic acid and all the, the waste byproducts from working his legs so hard in the game, and it helps him recover quicker. And, high-level powerlifters do it. I mean, it's definitely, there's truth to that.
Okay, so I understand that you're very passionate that strength means overall strength, that there isn't time in this world or in this life to sort of relax. But do you have any examples of how that might play out? I mean, no one can just stop their lives outside of the gym. We have things we have to do, right?
Yeah, and look, can't relax. Definitely I believe there's time for relaxation, but in terms of training and the gains you want to get out of your training and what conditioning can do for you, it spills over into other areas of your training and as well as your everyday life. I could list off a couple examples here if you wanted.
Sure.
Okay, so a powerlifter. Powerlifters were always known for the guys that just lifted for a single rep, the biggest weight possible, and you'd never see one doing cardio. They were big, fat guys. Okay, and that's not, that's not true. They were always thought to have the conditioning of a sack of manure, okay? But yeah, maybe at one point that was true and some of those guys were like that, but the reality is the smart powerlifters, okay? Guys like powerlifter and powerlifting great Louis Simmons, okay? Runs the Westside Barbell Gym, okay? He's got some of the best powerlifters, strongest powerlifters in his roster, in his gym, okay? He's got those guys constantly working on sled drags, sled work, pulling and dragging it, to improve their GPP, okay? Their overall conditioning. Okay, so prowler pushes, they understand the better shape you're in, the better able you're going to be able to go from one lift to the next and demonstrate maximum levels of strength. Okay, so if you're on a platform, in a competition even, you do your maximum amount of weight, that's going to take something out of you, okay? You're going to be fatigued from that. Even if it's just one rep, you grind out one rep, it feels like you ran a marathon. It's very tiring.
Right.
It's very taxing. At some point in that competition, you got to get back up on that platform. If you're not ready to go to pull max weights again because you're out of shape, conditioning wise, you're not going to pull max weights. It's just the way it is. Okay. General health. Again, going back to that advice of, lying around on your keister all day. Okay. I listened to that. Be a lazy bastard was exactly what they would tell you in the magazines, the muscle magazines even. Lay at the beach all day, do nothing, have the good life. And I was actually the guy that was used to sparring